Bella wore her ugliest outfit to sabotage a date she never wanted. Instead, she caught the attention of Kim Jong-baek, a Korean billionaire worth $4.2 billion, who fell for her the moment she refused to perform for anyone. The rooftop restaurant hummed with quiet wealth. Crystal clinked against crystal. Seoul's skyline glittered beyond floor-to-ceiling windows, like scattered diamonds mocking her existence. She tugged her oversized hoodie lower, combat boots scuffing floors that probably cost more than her apartment. No makeup. Hair stuffed beneath a faded cap. Armor against expectation. Let him see this and run. But when the elevator doors opened, the universe stopped negotiating. He stepped out like a man who owned gravity itself. Sharp jaw, tailored perfection. Eyes that calculated everything and revealed nothing. And those eyes found her immediately, like he'd been searching his entire life. Welcome to a world where stories breathe. As you settle in, I wonder, where are you watching from tonight? By the glow of the Christmas tree, perhaps? If these tales find a home with you, consider subscribing. It's the most heartfelt gift a storyteller could receive this season. The elevator climbed 47 floors, and with each passing number, Bella's regret multiplied exponentially. 32, 33, 34. Her reflection stared back from polished brass doors, oversized hoodie swallowing her frame, baggy jeans hiding every curve, sneakers scuffed from years of running from moments exactly like this one. The cap pulled low cast shadows across features she hadn't bothered enhancing. Not a single stroke of makeup. Not a whisper of effort. Perfect. 41, 42. Her phone buzzed. Maya's name flashed across the cracked screen. "You better be in that elevator, Bella. I will find you." She typed back with trembling thumbs. "I hate you." "You'll thank me later. He's perfect. Trust me." Trust. The word tasted like ash. The last man she'd trusted had dismantled her self-worth piece by piece, leaving behind a woman who'd forgotten what genuine smiles felt like. 3 years of rebuilding herself from emotional rubble, and Maya thought a blind date would fix everything. 47. The doors whispered open. Bella's breath caught somewhere between her chest and throat, refusing to complete its journey. The rooftop restaurant existed in a dimension she'd only glimpsed through magazine pages and movie screens. Seoul sprawled beneath like scattered jewels, endless lights pulsing against velvet darkness. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the cityscape like living artwork. Crystal chandeliers dripped elegance from ceilings that seemed to touch heaven itself. White orchids adorned tables dressed in linens that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Every woman present wore designer silk. Every man wore confidence like cologne. And Bella stood frozen in her ex-boyfriend's stolen hoodie, suddenly understanding what a sparrow feels when it accidentally lands in a palace. Run, turn around, disappear. But her feet betrayed her, carrying her forward because Maya had already threatened to personally drag her back if she fled. The hostess, impossibly beautiful, impeccably dressed, swept a gaze over Bella's outfit. Something flickered in those professionally trained eyes. Judgment? Pity? Both? "Reservation for Beck," Bella mumbled, hating how small her voice sounded. The hostess's expression transformed instantly, eyes widening, posture straightening. Suddenly, Bella wasn't being assessed. She was being escorted like royalty toward a private terrace she hadn't noticed existed. Beck. Just Beck. Maya hadn't mentioned a last name. The terrace doors opened onto a space that felt suspended between earth and stars. Private, intimate, a single table dressed in candlelight. The city hummed below like a living heartbeat. Wind carried whispers of jasmine and something expensive, sandalwood perhaps, or old money made tangible. And then she saw him. The world didn't just stop. It rewrote itself entirely. He stood with his back partially turned, silhouette carved against Seoul's glittering skyline. Tall, easily 6'2", with shoulders that commanded space rather than occupied it. When he turned, Bella forgot temporarily how breathing worked. Sharp jaw. Quiet eyes that held depths she couldn't fathom. Dark hair pushed back from a face that belonged in museums, all devastating angles softened by something unexpected. Gentleness, perhaps, hiding beneath carefully constructed walls. His suit fit like armor designed by artists who understood both elegance and danger. 34, maybe. But he carried himself like someone who'd lived multiple lifetimes and survived each one through sheer will. He was beautiful the way storms are beautiful. Terrifying. Magnificent. Absolutely not what she'd prepared herself for. Great. A rich man. Even worse. But Kim Jong-bak didn't smirk at her outfit. Didn't scan her body searching for what she'd hidden. Didn't let disappointment flicker across those unreadable features. Instead, he moved toward her with purposeful grace, pulled her chair out with hands that looked equally capable of building empires and offering tenderness, and waited. She sat because her legs had forgotten their purpose. He settled across from her, and silence stretched between them. Not awkward, but weighted. Meaningful. Like he was reading pages of her story she hadn't realized she'd left visible. "You're exactly how I hoped you'd be." Bella blinked. "Excuse me?" "Everyone performs," he said quietly. "Everyone constructs versions of themselves designed for consumption. But you walked in wearing armor instead of costume." His head tilted slightly. "That's rare. That's honest. That's beautiful." Her heart stumbled over itself. "I dressed like this so you'd leave," she admitted, surprising herself with honesty. "I know." Something almost resembling a smile touched his lips. "That's why I'm staying." The evening unfolded unlike anything she'd experienced. He didn't flirt, didn't charm, didn't perform the rituals of attraction she'd grown exhausted, deflecting. Instead, he asked questions that bypassed surface entirely, diving straight into depths she kept locked away. "What dreams did you stop chasing? When did the world teach you that existing wasn't enough? Who convinced you that performance was required for love?" She found herself answering, revealing, unraveling. And somewhere between the second course and the dessert she couldn't taste because his attention overwhelmed every sense, she realized something terrifying. He wasn't looking at her outfit, her unpolished presentation, her deliberate invisibility. He was looking at her. The exhaustion she carried like invisible luggage, the resilience stitched into her spine, the quiet strength she'd built from broken pieces nobody bothered examining. "Success isn't company," he said suddenly, gaze drifting toward the city below. "I built something massive and forgot to build anything real inside it. Everyone wants proximity to power. Nobody wants proximity to the person." Vulnerability, from a man who radiated control. Bella's chest tightened. The evening ended without grand gestures, no dramatic declarations, just two strangers who'd accidentally glimpsed each other's hidden wounds. But as she gathered her things, his voice stopped her. "Do you ever get tired of surviving instead of living?" The question landed like a blade between her ribs. She turned, met his eyes, found no judgment there, only recognition, only understanding, only the terrifying possibility that someone finally saw her. She left without answering, but walking toward the elevator, heart pounding against her sternum, Bella knew something fundamental had shifted. She wasn't sure whether to run or return. She didn't return. For exactly 11 days, Bella convinced herself that evening had been an anomaly, a glitch in reality that wouldn't repeat. She buried herself in work at the bookshop, stacking shelves, avoiding Maya's interrogations, pretending her thoughts didn't constantly drift toward quiet eyes and devastating questions. Do you ever get tired of surviving instead of living? The words haunted her like ghosts she couldn't exorcise. On the 12th day, he found her, not with limousines or helicopters or the grandiose gestures billionaires supposedly deployed. Kim Jong-baek stood outside her bookshop in the rain, umbrella forgotten, suit darkening with moisture, looking nothing like the commanding presence she'd met on that rooftop. He looked human. He looked uncertain. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted when she stepped outside, shock freezing her beneath the awning. "I've acquired companies, negotiated deals worth billions, commanded boardrooms across continents." Rain slid down his jaw. "But I don't know how to ask someone to have coffee with me without sending assistance first." Bella stared at him. Then, impossibly, laughed. Not politely, not performatively. A genuine sound that surprised them both. "You're getting soaked," she finally managed. "I'm aware. There's a coffee cart around the corner. 3001. Nothing fancy." Something shifted in his expression. Perfect. That afternoon became their first real beginning. The weeks that followed rewrote everything Bella understood about connection. Kim Jong didn't whisk her into private jets or exclusive galas. Instead, he carved time from schedules that controlled empires, appearing unexpectedly at her bookshop, waiting patiently while she finished inventory, walking beside her through neighborhoods he'd never explored despite living in Seoul his entire life. Namdaemun Market became their sanctuary. He'd never eaten tteokbokki from street vendors, never bargained for trinkets worth pennies, never wandered without destination or agenda. Never wandered without destination or agenda. Bella watched fascination bloom across his features as elderly women shouted prices, as steam rose from food stalls, as humanity pressed against them in beautiful chaos. "This is overwhelming," he admitted, clutching skewered fish cake like it might escape. "This is living," she corrected gently. His eyes found hers. Something cracked behind them. Walls shifting, defenses reconsidering. "Teach me," he whispered. "I think I forgot how." So she did. Their intimacy grew through accumulated moments rather than dramatic declarations. Sitting on park benches while autumn painted Seoul amber and gold, sharing earbuds, introducing each other to music that shaped their souls. Walking along the Han River at midnight when his insomnia wouldn't quiet and her nightmares wouldn't release. He learned her rhythms, discovered that she hummed unconsciously while reading, that she talked to plants like they understood, that she cried during commercials featuring elderly couples but refused tissues, insisting tears should fall freely. She learned his shadows, the father who'd demanded perfection and offered nothing resembling love, the business partner who'd betrayed him publicly, nearly destroying everything he'd built, the isolation that success constructed, golden prison bars that glittered beautifully while suffocating slowly. "Everyone leaves eventually," he confessed one evening, voice barely audible above river currents. "They want access to the empire. When they realize I'm separate from it, complicated, difficult, broken in ways money can't repair, they disappear." Bella reached for his hand, held it without speaking. Words weren't required. But fairy tales don't survive reality unscathed. The photographs surfaced 3 months into their quiet revolution. Tabloids screamed headlines Bella couldn't escape. "Tech billionaire's mysterious woman. Who is she?" Paparazzi materialized like predators scenting vulnerability. Her bookshop received calls from reporters offering money for stories. Maya fielded interview requests that grew increasingly invasive. Suddenly, Bella existed under microscopes she'd never consented to. "She's nobody. Gold digger, obviously. Look at how she dresses. He'll tire of her within months." Comment sections became torture chambers. Strangers dissected her appearance, her worthiness, her right to occupy space beside someone they'd collectively decided she didn't deserve. The pressure cracked something fragile. Maybe this was a mistake, she whispered one evening, sitting in his penthouse that felt increasingly like foreign territory. I don't belong in your world, Yong. I sell books. I eat instant noodles. I've never owned anything designer in my life. He knelt before her. Actually knelt. This man who commanded boardrooms and billions, lowering himself to meet her eyes. My world is empty, he said fiercely. Beautiful and hollow and meaningless. You think I care about designer labels? About impressing strangers who've never seen me? They worship the empire. You see the man. Do you understand how rare that is? How terrifying. Terrifying? His hands cradled her face with devastating gentleness. Everyone wants something from me, Bella. Investors want returns. Partners want access. Women want status, security, the fantasy of wealth without its weight. His voice fractured. But you? You wanted nothing. You walked into that restaurant hoping I'd leave. And somehow, impossibly, that made you the most dangerous person I've ever met. Tears blurred her vision. Dangerous? Because you have the power to matter. Real power. The kind money can't buy or contracts can't secure. His forehead pressed against hers. I'm not offering you a fairy tale. I'm offering something messier, arguments and complications, and two broken people trying to build something honest. Is that enough? Can that ever be enough? She kissed him. Not desperately, not passionately, softly, like promises being sealed, like futures being written in invisible ink only they could read. It's everything, she breathed against his lips. For the first time in years, hope didn't feel like a trap. It felt like permission. Permission to believe that happiness, real, grounded, imperfect happiness, might actually belong to them. Neither knew that fate was already preparing to collect its debt. But that night, wrapped in each other's arms while soul glittered obliviously below, tomorrow didn't exist. Only this moment. Only them. Only love that was never meant to exist, but existed anyway. The restaurant overlooked Seoul like a crown jewel suspended between earth and eternity. Private terrace, candlelight dancing against crystal, the same rooftop where everything began. But tonight felt different. Charged with something Bella couldn't name, something that tasted like endings and beginnings colliding. Kim Jong had been quieter than usual, distracted. His empire was hemorrhaging from attacks she didn't fully understand. Hostile takeovers, board betrayals, investors circling like vultures scenting weakness. 3 weeks of 18-hour days had carved exhaustion into his features, shadows pooling beneath eyes that usually held such quiet strength. But tonight, he'd insisted on this. I needed to see you, he'd said when arriving at her apartment. Everything else can burn, but not this, not us. Now, watching candlelight paint gold across his sharp features, Bella felt her heart perform acrobatics she'd stopped believing it capable of. You're staring, he murmured, lips curving slightly. You're worth staring at. Something flickered in his gaze. Vulnerability wrapped in wonder, like he still couldn't believe someone saw him rather than his empire. I have something to tell you, he said, reaching across white linen to capture her hand. His thumb traced circles against her palm. The board situation. It's stabilizing. Another month, maybe 2, and the worst will pass. That's good. That's not what I wanted to say. He exhaled slowly. When this ends, when the chaos quiets, I want to disappear with you. Somewhere without cameras or expectations or boardrooms. Just living. The way you taught me. Bella's breath caught. Yong, I know it sounds impossible. Billionaires don't disappear. But I've spent 34 years building something everyone else wanted. His eyes glistened unexpectedly. I want to build something I want. With you. Only you. Tears traced silver paths down her cheeks. You asked me once if I got tired of surviving instead of living, she whispered. I never answered properly. I remember. The truth is, her voice fractured. I only started living when I met you. Before you, I existed. I functioned. I performed survival convincingly enough that everyone believed I was fine. But living? Actually living? She shook her head. You taught me that. You showed me that existing wasn't enough, and that I deserved more than barely making it through each day. His hand tightened around hers. Then let's live together, he said. Properly, completely, imperfectly. Yes. The word escaped like a prayer. Yes. They left the restaurant wrapped in promises that tasted like forever. Seoul glittered below as his car descended from the rooftop, city lights blurring into streaming gold through rain-slicked windows. His driver navigated carefully through midnight traffic, while Kim Jong held Bella close, her head resting against his shoulder, his lips pressed against her hair. I love you, he murmured. I don't say it enough. Words have always been difficult, but I love you. Completely, desperately, in ways that terrify me. She smiled against his chest. I know. I want you to hear it anyway. Then I'll hear it forever. The intersection approached, green light glowing through rain. Bella felt him relax beside her, felt his breathing steady, felt peace radiating from a man who'd forgotten what peace tasted like until she'd taught him. She never saw the truck. Headlights, blinding, screeching metal screaming against metal, glass exploding into diamonds, spinning, the world becoming unrecognizable chaos. Then silence. Absolute. Devastating. Silence. Bella woke to fluorescent lights and antiseptic air. Her body screamed, ribs fractured, arm broken, face lacerated by glass that had torn through like vengeful claws. But physical pain registered distantly, overwhelmed by something far worse. Where is he? She demanded, voice ravaged. Where is he? Nurses exchanged glances. Doctors spoke in measured tones. But Bella saw truth written in their eyes before words confirmed it. Kim Jong-baek was alive, barely, coma, severe traumatic brain injury, machines breathing for him, monitors tracking heartbeats that stuttered like broken promises. The following days blurred into nightmarish sameness. Media exploded. Tech billionaire critical after crash. Stock prices plummeted. Board members circled like sharks. Corporate vultures emerged from shadows, eager to dismantle everything he'd built while he lay helpless. Bella ignored all of it. She sat beside his bed, bandaged, broken, refusing pain medication that might dull her awareness, and held his unmoving hand. Machines beeped rhythmically. Tubes and wires connected him to life he couldn't claim independently. His face, usually so animated with quiet strength, remained terrifyingly still. She talked to him, read to him, described sunsets he couldn't see and street markets they'd never visit again. Nothing. No response, no flicker, no sign that he remained somewhere inside that damaged body. Days became weeks, weeks became weight she could barely carry. The night she broke, rain streaked against hospital windows like the sky itself was grieving. Bella leaned close, lips nearly touching his ear, and let words escape that she'd held captive too long.
I don't know if you can hear me,
She whispered, voice splintering.
but I'm going to talk anyway.
Machines beeped, rain fell. The universe offered no comfort.
You once asked me if I got tired of surviving instead of living. I never answered properly.
Tears streamed freely now.
The truth is, I only started living when I met you.
Her forehead pressed against his motionless hand.
You looked at me when I tried to disappear. You saw me when I couldn't see myself. And I don't know how to exist in a world where you're not laughing, not arguing gently, not teasing me about how stubborn I am.
Sobs racked her broken body.
You promised me living, not fairy tales, just living. And I still want that, even broken, even complicated, even difficult.
She lifted her head, studied his face, peaceful in ways that terrified her.
But if you can't stay, if your body is tired, if your soul has already gone somewhere peaceful,
The words tasted like betrayal.
then go.
Silence stretched infinite.
I'll hurt. I'll fall. I'll break. But I'll stand again. Because loving you taught me that my heart can carry impossible things.
Her lips pressed against his knuckles.
And if the only thing I can do now is love you enough to let you rest, then rest. Just know you weren't alone. And you were loved.
She collapsed against the bed, grief pouring out in waves that threatened to drown her entirely.
Completely. Genuinely. Fiercely. By me.
3 days later, the monitors flatlined. Nurses rushed in. Doctors worked desperately. But Bella had known since that night, that she'd already said goodbye. Kim Jong-baek died at 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. The world lost a billionaire. Bella lost everything. The funeral unfolded like choreographed grief. Cold marble, dark suits, silence so thick it suffocated. Seoul's elite gathered beneath gray skies, their designer black absorbing what little light remained. Cameras lined the perimeter like vultures, lenses hungry for tears, for collapse, for the spectacular destruction of a woman who dared love above her station. Bella gave them nothing. She stood apart from the crowd, wrapped in a simple black coat he'd bought her during their first winter together. No designer labels, no borrowed elegance. Just herself, bandaged wrists hidden beneath sleeves, fractured ribs screaming beneath fabric, heart shattered into pieces she'd stopped trying to reassemble. His casket gleamed obsidian beneath overcast heavens. Flowers blanketed its surface, white orchids, his favorite, though few people knew that. Few people knew anything real about him. They'd worshipped the empire while ignoring the emperor's loneliness. Bella had known. She'd known how he laughed when no one watched, genuine and slightly awkward, like joy surprised him. She'd known how he hummed off-key while cooking ramyeon at midnight. She'd known that he read poetry when insomnia haunted him, that he feared abandonment more than bankruptcy, that he'd never learned to accept love because no one had offered it without conditions. Until her. The minister spoke words that meant nothing. Eulogies praised accomplishments rather than character. Business partners delivered speeches about legacy and innovation while calculating how quickly they could dismantle what he'd built. Bella listened to none of it. Instead, she remembered his voice. Quiet, steady, teaching her lessons she'd carry forever. Strength isn't loud. It's choosing to keep breathing when everything demands you stop. She breathed. Grief doesn't require performance. Feel it fully, then choose what comes next. She felt it, oceanic and overwhelming, but remained standing. The world will tell you that survival is enough. It's not. Living is enough. Choose living. She would. The weeks following his burial revealed truths Bella hadn't anticipated. Kim Jong-baek's empire, vast, intricate, seemingly invincible, began hemorrhaging without its architect. Board members who'd smiled at his funeral now circled like predators, proposing restructures that prioritized profit over people. Investors demanded immediate returns regardless of human cost. Whispers suggested selling divisions, eliminating positions, abandoning charitable initiatives that generated goodwill but minimal revenue. 3,000 employees faced uncertainty. 17 charitable programs he'd secretly funded faced dissolution. Everything he'd built faced destruction by those who'd never understood why he built it. Bella watched from the margins, anonymous and overlooked. The girlfriend. The nobody. The woman tabloids had dismissed as temporary entertainment for a bored billionaire. Until she discovered the documents. Hidden in his personal safe, combination her birthday, she'd cried for hours discovering that, were files detailing everything. Every charity, every employee initiative, every quiet promise he'd made to people who'd never make headlines. Handwritten notes accompanied each file, explaining his reasoning, his hopes, his fears that these programs would die with him. One note was addressed directly to her. "If you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry. I promised you living, and instead, I've left you grieving. But Bella, you taught me that love continues beyond convenience. So I'm asking you to continue what I started. Not because you owe me, but because you're the only person who ever understood why it mattered. Protect them. The workers who build empires but never own them. The children whose educations I funded anonymously. The families surviving on programs nobody knows I created. Protect them. Because loving you taught me that legacy isn't wealth, it's impact. And you are my greatest impact. Forever. Jong." She folded the letter carefully. Then she walked into his boardroom. They laughed when she entered. 12 executives in $1,000 suits, comfortable in their assumption that grief had rendered her irrelevant. The girlfriend, the outsider, the woman who'd arrived uninvited to discussions she couldn't possibly understand. "Miss, this is a private meeting. I hold 34% of voting shares," Bella interrupted calmly. "Transferred to me in his will, filed 3 weeks before the accident, which makes me the single largest stakeholder in this room." Silence. "I also hold documented evidence of the initiatives he created, programs you're planning to eliminate, workers you're planning to dismiss, communities you're planning to abandon." She placed folders on the mahogany table. "These programs continue. These employees remain. These promises get kept. You can't possibly—" "I'm not asking permission." Her voice didn't waver. "I'm informing you of what happens next. Fight me if you want. But I learned from someone who understood that battles aren't won through volume. They're won through refusal to surrender." She thought of him, drew strength from memories that still burned. "This company continues as he intended, or I dismantle it publicly, exposing every shortcut, every betrayal, every moment you prioritize greed over humanity." She smiled, cold, determined, unbreakable. "Your choice." They chose wisely. Months passed like slowly healing wounds. Spring arrived softly, painting soul in blossoms that reminded Bella of renewal. The company stabilized under her unexpected leadership. Charitable programs expanded rather than dissolved. Employees who'd feared unemployment now thrived under policies she'd implemented. Policies reflecting his values rather than pure profit. She hadn't done it for power. She'd done it because love doesn't end when heartbeats stop. The cemetery was quiet the afternoon she returned. Flowers rested against his headstone, fresh orchids she'd brought herself. Wind whispered through cherry trees, carrying petals like nature's confetti. Sunlight warmed stone that had felt so cold during darker days. Bella knelt slowly, not as the broken woman who'd collapsed against hospital beds, not as the grieving girlfriend who'd forgotten how breathing worked, as someone living. "I kept my promise," she whispered, fingers tracing carved letters of his name. "I'm still living, every day, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts." Tears came, but warm now, gentle, healing rather than destroying. "I carry you with me, not like a wound, not like weight that crushes, like light, like warmth, like proof that loving someone completely changes everything, even after they're gone." She pressed her palm against sun-warmed stone. "Thank you for seeing me, for choosing me, for teaching me that survival isn't enough." Wind stirred the blossoms. Somewhere distant, birds sang. "I love you, still, always, forever." Bella stood slowly, inhaled spring air, felt his presence in ways that transcended physical reality. Then she turned and walked forward. Not toward an ending, toward continuation, because their story didn't conclude in a cemetery beneath cherry blossoms. It continued in every life she'd protected, every promise she'd honored, every morning she chose living over merely surviving. The woman who'd once dressed to disappear had learned to shine. And somewhere beyond the veil, she knew he was smiling. Thank you for sharing this story with me. As the Christmas lights twinkle, remember, your subscription isn't just a click. It's a bell that rings out, telling me to keep writing for you. Don't let the magic end here. Subscribe, and let's journey into the new year together.